What's up, everybody? Master Reactor here, and we have another replay video for you, for you and y'all. If you're watching this with your family, maybe at the dinner table or some good shit. But these two losses right here was to burn. So I literally played a burn deck, and he got me. Oh, I'm reconnecting. Cool. Okay, I'm back. And then very next, after playing the burn deck, I played P-U-Y, Puai, or whatever, however you say her name. And I didn't even play the match. I just scooped because I'm just so sick of playing against burn, and I hate that fucking deck. But without playing a burn, I have a pretty good win streak versus burn. Instead of the burn, I have 1, that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 wins if you don't include the burn. So we're going to do a replay against the deck that I just played right now. So I throw paper, he throws scissors, so he gets to go first. Alright, rascabuches, I don't know, rascabuches, some shit, I don't know. But anyways, he's got swords, book, scapegoat, torrential, emissary, and Yugioh. He decides to set Emissary and set Scapegoat and say go. I've got Tribe, Jar, Breaker, Sinister, Snatch Steal, and Magician of Fate. This is a pretty good match. So I decide to break. And I decide not to crash and just set Jar Greed and pass here. He draws into Thunder Dragon, so now I probably wish I would have crashed. So he decides to crash now. Crashes, and he gets DD Trainer. I guess that's a good target for your Metamorphosis or some shit, whatever kind of shit this guy's playing. But anyways, he discards Thunder Dragon and grabs 2 more. And decides to set Torrential and say go. I end phase Jar Greed in case he has the Kree. I draw Kaiku and Chaos Sorg. I use Tribe's effect. He doesn't use Torrential. He wants to wait. And I poke him for 16 and say go. He draws into a meta. So he decides to set his DD Trainer and then Metamorphosis into Thousand Eyes Restrict and take my Tribe and hit me for 16. Okay. I draw into Heavy Storm here. I get my Sinister back. I decide not to heavy and just set Sinister and say go. He draws into Soul Release, which is a pretty good draw right now because he knows I have Sinister. So I attack. He attacks into my Sinister. And then main phase 2, he uses Soul Release and banishes my entire graveyard. Okay. And he just says go. I draw into Delinquent Duo. I decide to fire the Duo. And I get his Thunder Dragon, which sucks. 3 other cards I wish I would have hit it. I set my Faith and say go. He decides to fire the Soul Release again, so now he's negging for days. And he runs it to the Faith, and I have nothing in the graveyard because he banished it. I draw into Mirror Force. I decide to set Mirror Force and set Kaiku and say go. He runs the Yugioh out and flips it back up and steals my shit. Okay. And he just says go. I draw into Upstart. Fire the Upstart into Pot of Greed. Fire the Pot of Greed. Draw into Yugioh and Magician of Faith. Okay, I decide to run the Yugioh out, and now he decides to torrential it. Okay, and I just say go. I could have dropped the Chaos Sorg here, but I decided not to. He fires swords and says go. I draw into a knock. I set my Faith and say go. He draws into his Faith. And he sets his Faith and says go. I flip up my Faith to grab the Pot of Greed, draw into Solom and Sanguin, and drew Jar of Greed for turn. I knock his shit, and it is a Faith, so I remove them all. Okay, he's running 2, I'm running 3. I decide to set Sanguin and set Jar of Greed and say go. He draws into a Sanguin. He runs the Sanguin out and decides to crash into my set Sanguin. I get Deco because pretty much my only target is either that or Spy. He sets Book of Moon and says go. I end phase Jar of Greed into a Jar of Greed, and then I draw into Thunder Dragon. I discard the Thunder Dragon and grab 2 more. Now I got bandaged like crazy on this guy because he's literally used 3 cards that are just nags, Soul Release and Swords, and it really didn't do anything, but hey. So I tried to banish the Sengen. He uses another nag and sets his Sengen, which is fine. I set Jar of Greed and just say go. Still not setting the Solemn Judgment. He draws into Graceful Charity, fires the Graceful into Book of Moon, BLS, and Emissary. He discards his Sinister and discards his Emissary, and decides to run out the BLS and banish my Chaos Sork. I'm like, alright, that's fine. Then he runs out Tsukiyomi and swings into my Faith and sets a Book of Moon. I draw into BLS and the Wing Blast. Wing Blast with a Jar and BLS return. So now I have a few plays I can do. I decide to flip the Deco and draw another card on him. Draw into another Deco. Okay, and I decide just to crash. And he says, okay, I take 1100 and I try to Snatch Steal, and he Book of Moons his BLS. And I run out my BLS and banish it. And I set Deco, Wing Blast, and Solemn Judgment. Glad I've been saving this Solemn Judgment for a rainy day, because now he banished it, drops Chaos Sork, and I Solemn Judgment it, and he's had enough, because he knows that I got advantage for days and there's no way he can come back. So let's see what happens game 2. Game 1, I did get kind of lucky, but he's playing some jank ass shit, so it is what it is. Game 2, he's got Thunder Dragon, Book of Moon, Tribe, Royal Decree, Metamorphosis, and Graceful Charity. Must be nice to have the Thunder Dragon in the Graceful. Not that it matters, because his deck is pretty garbage. He draws into 2 DD Trainers and an Emissary. That was pretty much the jankest draws he could have drew. He sets the DD Trainer and sets Book of Moon and says go. I draw into Pot of Greed. Alright, that was a great draw. I got Deco, Tribe, Knock, Jar of Greed, Thunder Dragon, and Pot of Greed. I decide to discard my Thunder Dragon. And I grab 2. And I fire the Pot of Greed into a Spy and a Wing Blast. I decide to knock and set my Spy and set Wing Blast and set Jar of Greed. He draws into Soul Release. Okay, he decides to fire the Soul Release because he must think I have Faith here, which is fine. He runs out Emissary and attacks into my Spy. And I get another Spy. He sets a Royal Decree and says go. I decide to fire Jar of Greed. He tries to Royal Decree, and I chain Wing Blast to put it back on top, which was great because it sets him back a turn, and I know what he's going to draw. So another situation why Wing Blast is better than Regeki Break. So I just set Sengen and set Jar of Greed and say go. He draws into meta, I guess, and or no, he drew into Royal Decree. He already had meta, obviously, so he sucks up my monster, which is a Sengen. I in-phase Jar of Greed, because I know he has the Kree. And I draw... Oh, no, it's not a Sengen. It's a Sinister. Oh, no, it's a Deco. Okay, so he got me there. In-phase, he Book of Moons his Thousand Eyes Restrict. Now he's going to get Sengen. And he draws into Book of Moon. He runs out the Tribe and discards the Book of Moon. Now I know everything he has. And he gets my Sengen. I draw into Breaker. I run my Tribe out. I use Tribe. And I search for Sinister. I use Sinister. He has no more targets. And I crash in with the Tribe. He draws into Chaos Sork, which was a great draw for him, because he banishes the Dark and Light. And now I have no answer for the Chaos Sork. So it's kind of dangerous here. And he hits me for 23. Putting me at 57. I draw into Solemn. I'm a turn late. But he had Royal Decree anyways. I decide just to set Sinister and set Solemn and say go. He draws into a Sinister. He runs right into my Sinister and hits me for another 23. So now I am at 34. I draw into Jar of Greed. I grab my Sinister back. I run out the Breaker because I know that's Royal Decree. And I attack into a Sinister. Hit him for 16. Main phase 2. I pop the Decree and say go. He draws to a Mind Control, which is pretty dead. He gets his Sinister back. Okay. And he decides just to banish it because he doesn't want me to have a Dark and Light, I guess, or some shit. Don't really know because I already have the Dark and Light. Maybe he's worried about a Battle Trap. I upstart into duo, and then I jar a greed into another upstart, and I draw into another solemn. And now I fire the duo and get rid of his mind control, which was great. And I set Faith and say go. He draws into Emissary of the Dark. Okay, I'm pretty low on life here at 2400. He decides just to run right into it, and I get Upstart Goblin. And I draw into Graceful. Okay, this is a great draw. Upstart an MST, and I fire the Graceful into Faith, and he just scoops. So that is the game, people. He already knew there was no way he was coming back. I had the BLS, I had the goods. He was playing some jank-ass shit, rascabuches, butches, I don't know how you say that name. But y'all hit the like, hit the sub, have a good day or night. Peace out, bye.